Hi friends, Lisa Soland here. I have been wanting to put together a video like this for a very long time, and I think what stopped me is this idea of perfection, that I don't have the right equipment, I don't have, but having everything in place has never stopped me before. And that's going to be one of the things I talk about in another video, is the perfection thing. But I had this idea of putting together a book of like the top 10 habits of success. And I thought that those same things apply to what's going on right now with this coronavirus and how we're all isolated and we're really left up to our own devices and separated. So the same support systems that we've had in the past are not necessarily there in the same way. So I thought that I would make 10 videos and discuss these 10 success ideas that I have and that I've tried to implement in my own life with regards to the coronavirus, and thought that maybe it would be of help. I think of you all so often and want so much to reach out to you and help in some way, and that's really what's propelling me to put together this video. So there'll be short videos just to maybe, throw out some ideas. And I have been kicked out of my office, my writer's desk, because my husband is now working from home. So he's over there through that wall in what used to be my office for reasons I'm okay with and totally understand, but it's like 18 years I've been working in my office, So now I'm kind of in the living room and the dining room. The World War II project I'm working on is on the dining room table because it's just in a mass of letters and photographs and diaries, and it takes a huge table, which I had in my office. But now it's the dining room table, and I don't need it to entertain because no one can come over. Anyway, so I thought that we would call these kind of fireside chats like Roosevelt did during World War II, since I'm working on that project. And it's so amazing. I'm reading these World War II letters, and it's like this feels so similar to what's going on today, though we have it so much better, really. Though I think these next 2 weeks might be difficult ones for us, and that's why my heart really wants to reach out to you. So I am sitting by our fireplace, and we're going to call these the Fireside Chats with your friend Lisa. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and would be in the book if I were to ever put together the book, is this idea of 10 secrets of success. We've heard them all before, but you know what? We need to be reminded. And I feel like reminding myself. So if this is of any help to you, then I'm glad about that. So number 1, I've got, upon waking, feed the brain and the soul. Upon waking, right? We have to be intentional, especially in these difficult times, because what I found myself doing over the last 3 weeks is waking up and turning on the television and watching the news. Well, last night I had reached, I was aware of how down I was. I had no energy. When you get like that, you start eating bad food, you don't drink enough water, you're not motivated to exercise. And I thought, this isn't good. And I think the first things that you put in your brain and your heart in the morning are quite important. So I thought that I would share with you kind of what I do. But again, in reminding you, I remind myself as well. So we have to be intentional. A lot of these things, it involves reading, right? Because that's where we take in quality information. But if you do have a YouTube channel that you follow that offers you great encouragement, then that's certainly a viable source. But for me, I go to books. So I wanted to share a couple of the books with you. And I know in each of your homes are these positive books. I'm talking about a book that has information that encourages you and puts you in a state of mind and aligns your heart so that it impacts the rest of your day. And if you come upon stumbling blocks, you run into a brick wall, you can always refer back to those things throughout the day. But this is really important, especially in these times that we face. So I thought, again, I would share just a couple of things with you. By the way, artists out there, this is a really good book. It's called Picasso by Gertrude Stein. I love it, but it's kind of for artists. This is another really great book. It's by Darren Hardy. I am into these books that realign your thinking in a great and positive way. And this book really points out very clearly the impact of small little things, doing them over a period of time, right? And that's what makes up our life. He says here on page 42, once you start tracking your life, your attention will be focused on the smallest things you're doing right, as well as the smallest things you're doing wrong. And when you choose to make even the smallest course corrections consistently over time, you'll begin to see amazing results. But don't expect immediate fanfare. When I say small course corrections, I'm talking truly invisible. But this is the thing. If you feed your mind positive things first thing in the morning and that becomes a habit, you know, even as I'm speaking this, that is going to turn your life around. It really is. I recommend books like this, Positive Thinking, anything like this that you can get your hand on. As an artist, I love this book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And what's great is it's so readable. You know, you don't get overwhelmed. The chapters are small. Some are super small. I want to read you this piece right here. So if I wake up in the morning and I read this, okay, like a magnetized needle floating on a surface of oil, resistance, with a capital R, will unfailingly point to true north, meaning that calling or action it most wants to stop us from doing. So we can use this. We can use it as a compass. We can navigate by this thing that he calls resistance with a capital R. As a writing teacher, I talk with my students about this all the time. Do you think that the world is going to lift you up and support you if you're doing something that's powerful and significant? No way. That's not the way it works. Stephen talks about it, and he calls it resistance. I call it something else, but it is a darkness, and you all know what I'm talking about. It settles on top of us and suffocates us, and any ideas of creating or acting and doing something great get snuffled out. So he says we can navigate by resistance, letting it guide us to that calling or action that we must follow before all others, okay? Rule of thumb, the more important a call or action is to our soul's evolution, the more resistance, with a capital R, we will feel toward pursuing it. So if you think doing something great is going to be easy, think again. It's often not that way. In fact, the very thing that's hard for you to do is the very thing you need to do. There are certain people that I work with in my life, and when I work with certain people, the resistance is stronger. So I know that what that person has to say and put out, the message they're trying to put out into the world, has oftentimes the most value. Do you understand what I'm saying? So just because you're experiencing resistance doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Press forward. Press forward. The third example, I also, on a side note, I read The Dramatist. It's because I am a dramatist, I am a playwright, and that's the magazine that I get for that. But another thing that you might consider is picking up the Bible. After all, the Bible is the best-selling book of all time, and many of my followers on Facebook are writers. So it goes without saying that you should be reading the most popular book of all time, translated into the most languages. And if you haven't looked at it in a while and you do have one, which, I've been looking at mine lately because of all that's happening, trying to make sense of it all. I would recommend the book of Matthew, chapter 5 and 6. The Sermon on the Mount, in my opinion, just my opinion, is the most powerful, applicable section of scripture in the Bible, and the Bible is the number one selling book of all time. So that to me is the quintessential, incredible section of writing. Very powerful. So I recommend that. But for today, I just wanted to share with you Ephesians 6, verse 10 and forward, 10 through 18. Now, if this thing exists called resistance, if there is a force that comes against anything of value or worthwhile, then we have to know pretty much how to stand against that resistance, right? Well, there's a good thing here in my reading for today. Again, it's Ephesians 6, verse 10. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Okay, so that's refreshing and brings me a lot of peace, because that means I don't have to rely on my own strength. And we all know, I personally am not that strong. Put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. Okay, so the Bible calls that the devil, whereas Stephen, in the War of Art, calls it resistance. So regardless of your name for it, there is a force that comes up against something that is good and pure and righteous and kind. Don't forget these qualities in these hard times. I went to Costco the other day, and, our local grocery store, and what I noticed is these people are walking around, the people that work there. So they're being very courageous to work in the stores, with all that's going on. And I noticed that they're looking at their customers a little differently. They're looking to see, are you this type? Are you an A-type customer? Or are you a B-type customer? I could sense that from what they were doing and how they were looking at me. And I realized they wanted me to be a kind customer. So when they looked at me, I went, hey, how are you doing today? Almost like nothing disastrous was going on in the world. And their faces lit up and they thought, okay, she's not crazy. She's not, she's not going insane with all of this, and it matters to her to treat me kindly. That's what they were thinking. As a playwright, 95% of our dialogue, or in life, 95% of what you say is superfluous. It's what you don't say that matters. So it's really, what matters is your disposition. So there was nothing spoken. It was just an exchange between two people, which I miss being isolated at home. I miss those little exchanges. But I got to tell you, people need to be treated kindly. And even if you're not being treated kindly, it's important to treat others that way. It's hard to do when you're getting accosted. But anyway, for our struggles is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, okay? That's what I call it, is darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. So if I'm going to read this first thing in the morning, that just reminds me that it's not about me. If I'm up against something difficult, it's not about me. It's about the way the world system is set up. So the best thing that I can do under a world system that is like that is to be intentional. So the first thing you do in the morning is feed some good things into your mind. And for me, this really is loaded with a lot of very good, positive direction. But there's a lot of other books too. Ray Bradbury, Zen, in the Art of Writing. This is one of my favorite motivational books as a writer. But even you people that are artists in general, or I have this hair in my eye. Artists in general, or anything. It will inspire you no matter what you do. It's kind of like Zen and the Art of Archery. That's a great book too. But to wind this up, especially now, the first secret of success to help you through the coronavirus isolation nightmare. But it doesn't have to be a nightmare. It can be a time of self-exploration. I recommend that upon waking, feed the brain and the soul. I know you've got those books in your house. You don't need to go out and get them. Do that first thing. And then if you feel yourself slipping throughout the day, you can refer back to those books and get yourself back on track. It's important because these are hard times. And I appreciate you. Please click that you like this video and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you for entrusting me with these 15 minutes, and I will see you soon. Bye.